Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my second part of The Cell, Stephen King. Here we go. The two girls had exactly the same haircut about their iPod headphones, but the one with the peppermint colored cell phone was blonde, and her friend was brunette. They were Pixie Light and Pixie Dark. Now, Pixie Light dropped her phone on the sidewalk, where it shattered and seized Parachute Woman around the waist. Clay assumed, so far as he was capable of assuming anything in those moments, that she meant to restrain Parachute Woman either from going after Mr. Softy Guy again or from running into the street after her dog. There was even a part of his mind that applauded the girl's presence of mind. Her friend Pixie Dark was backing away from the whole deal, small white hands clasped between her breasts, eyes wide. Clay dropped his own items, one on each side, and stepped forward to help Pixie Light. On the other side of the street, he saw this only in his peripheral vision. Car swerved and bolted across the sidewalk in front of the Four Seasons, causing the doorman to dart out of the way. There were screams from the hotel's forecourt, and before Clay could begin helping Pixie Light with Parachute Woman, Pixie Light had darted her pretty little face forward with snake-like speed, barred her undoubtable strong young teeth, and battened on Parachute Woman's neck. There was an enormous jet of blood. The pixie girl stuck her face in it, appeared to bathe in it, perhaps even drank from it. Clay was almost sure she did, then shook Parachute Woman back and forth like a doll. The woman was taller and had to outweigh the girl by at least 40 pounds, but the girl shook her hard enough to make the woman's head flop back and forth and send more blood flying. And at the same time, the girl cooked her own blood-smeared face up to the bright blue October sky and howled in what sounded like triumph. "She's mad," Clay thought. "Totally mad." Pixie Dark cried out, "Who are you? What's happening?" At the sound of her friend's voice, Pixie Light whipped her bloody head around. Blood dripped from the short daggered point of hair overhang her forehead. Eyes like white lamps peered from blood-dappled sockets. Pixie Dark looked at Clay, her eyes wide. Who are you?" And she repeated, and then, "Who am I?" Pixie Light dropped Parachute Woman, who collapsed to the sidewalk with her chewed open carotid artery. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce that word. Never seen that word before. Still spurting. Then leaped at the girl with whom she had been shummily sharing a phone only a few moments before. Clay didn't think. If he had thought, Pixie Dark might have had her throat open like the woman in the parachute. He didn't even look. He simply reached down and to his right seized the top of the small treasure shopping bag and swung it at the back of Pixie Light's head as she leaped at her erstwhile friend with her outstretched hands making claw fists against the blue sky. If he missed, he didn't miss, or even hit the girl a glancing blow. The glass paperweight inside the bag struck the back of Pixie Light's head dead on, making a muffled thunk. Pixie Light dropped her hands, one bloodstained, one still clean, and fell to the sidewalk at her friend's feet like a sack of meal. "What the hell?" Mr. Softy Guy cried. His voice was improbably high. Maybe shock had given him that high tenor. "I don't know," Clay said. His heart was hammering. "Help me, quick. This other one's bleeding to death." From behind him on Newberry Street came the unmistakably hollow bang and jingle of a car crash, followed by screams. The screams were followed by another explosion, this one louder, concussive, hammering the day. Behind the Mr. Softy truck, another car swerved across 3 lanes of Boston Street and into the courtyard of the Four Seasons, mowing down a couple of pedestrians and then plowing into the back of a previous car, which had finished with his nose crumbled into the revolving door. This second crash showed the first car further into revolving doors, bending them askew. Clay couldn't see if anyone was trapped in there. Clouds of steam were rising from the first car, breaching radiator, but the agonized squeaks of the shadows suggested bad things, very bad. Mr. Softy Guy, blind on that side, was leaning out his serving window and staring at Clay. "What's going on over there?" "I don't know. A couple of cars wrecked. People hurt. Never mind. Help me, man." He knelt beside Parachute Woman in the blood and the shadowed remnants of Pixie Light's pink cell phone. Parachute Woman twitches had now become weak indeed. Smoke from over on Newberry observed Mr. Softy Guy still not emerge from the relative safety of his ice cream wagon. "Something blew up over there. I mean, big time. Maybe it's terrorists." As soon as the word was out of his mouth, Clay was sure he was right. "Help me." "Who am I?" Pixie Dark suddenly screamed. Clay had forgotten all about her. He looked up in time to see the girl smack herself in the forehead with the heel of her hand, then turn around rapidly 3 times, standing almost on the toes of her tennies to do it. The sight called up a memory of some poem he read in college. Lit class, weave a circle round him thrice. Coleridge, wasn't it? She staggered, then ran rapidly down the sidewalk and directly into a lamppost. She made no attempt to avoid it or even put up her hands. She struck it face first, rebounded, staggered, then went at it again. "Stop that!" Clay roared. He shot to his feet, started to run towards her, slipped in the Parachute Woman's blood, almost fell, got going again, tripped on the Pixie Light, and almost fell again. Pixie Dark looked around at him. Her nose was broken and gushing blood from her lower face. A vertical contusion was puffing up her brow, rising like thunderhead on a summer's day. One of her eyes had gone crooked in its socket. She opened her mouth, exposing a ruin of what had probably been expensive orthodox work, and laughed at him. He never forgot it. Then she ran away down the sidewalk, screaming. Behind him, a motor started up and amplified bells began tinkling out the Sesame Street theme. Clay turned and saw the Mr. Softy truck pulling rapidly away from the curb, just as from the top floor of the hotel across the way, a window shattered in a bright spray of glass. A body hurled out into the October day. It fell to the sidewalk, where it more or less exploded. More screams from the forecourt, screams of horror, screams of pain. "No!" Clay yelled, running along the Mr. Softy truck. "No, come back and help me! I need help! Help over here, you son of a bitch!" No answer from Mr. Softy Guy, who maybe couldn't hear over his amplified music. Clay could remember the words from the days when he had no reason not to believe his marriage wouldn't last forever. In those days, Johnny watched Sesame Street every day, sitting in his little blue chair with his sippy cup clutched in his hands. Something about a sunny day keeping the clouds away. A man in a business suit came running out of the park, roaring wordless sounds at the top of his lungs, his coattails flopping behind him. Clay recognized him by his dog fur goatee. The man ran into Bolton Street, cars swerving around him, barely missing him. He ran on to the other side, still roaring and waving his hands at the sky. He disappeared into the shadows beneath the canopy of the Four Seasons forecourt and was lost to view. But he must have gotten up to more Dickens immediately, because a fresh volley of screams broke out over there. Clay gave up his chase of the Mr. Softy truck, and stood with one foot on the sidewalk and the other planted in the gutter, watching as it swerved into the center lane of Bolton Street, still tinkling. He was about to turn back to the unconscious girl and dying woman when another duck boat appeared, this one not loafing, but roaring at top speed and yawing crazily from port to starboard. Some of the passengers were tumbling back and forth and howling, pleading for the driver to stop. Others simply clung to the metal struts running up the open sides of the ungainly thing as it made its way up to Bolton Street against the flow of traffic. A man in a sweatshirt grabbed the driver from behind, and Clay heard another of those inarticulate cries through the duck's boat primitive amplification system as the driver threw the guy off. With a mighty backward swung. Not rast this time, but something more guttural. Guttural? Something that sounded like glah. Then the duckboat driver saw the Mr. Softy truck. Clay was sure of it and changed course, aiming for it. Oh God, please no. A woman sitting near the front of the tourist craft cried, and it closed in on the tinkling ice cream truck, which was approximately 1/6 its size. Clay had a clear memory of watching the victory parade on TV the year the Red Sox won the World Series. The team rode in a slow-moving procession of these same duckboats, waving to delirious multitudes as a cold autumn drizzle fell. God, please no, the woman shrieked again, and from beside Clay, a man said almost mightily, Jesus Christ. The duckboat hit the ice cream truck broadside and flipped it like a child's toy. It landed on the side with its own amplification system still tinkling out the Sesame Street theme music, and went skidding back towards the common, shooting up frictions generated bursts of sparks. Two women who had been watching dashed to get out of the way, holding hands, and just made it. The Mr. Softy truck bounced onto the sidewalk, went briefly airborne, then hit the wrong iron fence surrounding the park and came to rest. The music hiccuped twice, then stopped. The lunatic driving the duckboat had meanwhile lost whatever marginal control he had over his vehicle. It looped back across Bolton Street, with his freight of terrified, screaming passengers clinging to the open sides, mounted the sidewalks across about 50 yards down to from the point where the Mr. Softy truck had tinkled its last, and ran into the low brick retaining wall below the display window of a Tony furniture shop called City Hills. There was a vast unmusical crash as the window shattered. The duckboat's wide rear end was written on its pink script. Rose perhaps 50 feet in the air. Momentum wanted the great waddling thing to go end over end. Mass would not allow. It settled back to the sidewalk, with its snout poked among the shattered sofas and expensive living room chairs, but not before at least a dozen people had gone shooting towards out of the duckboat and out of sight. inside city lights, a burglar alarm began to clang. Jesus Christ, the mild voice from Clay's right elbow. A second time, he turned that way and saw a short man with thinning dark hair, tiny dark mustache, and a gold-rimmed spectacles. What's going on? I don't know, Clay said. Talking was hard. Very. He found himself almost having to punch words out. He supposed it was shock. Across the street, people were running away. Some from the Four Seasons, some from the crashed tugboat. As he watched, a tugboat run away collided with a Four Seasons escapee, and then both went crashing to the sidewalk. There was time to wonder if he had gone insane and was hallucinating all this in a madhouse somewhere, Juniper Hill in Augusta, maybe between Tarzan shots. The guy in the ice cream truck said maybe terrorists. I don't see any men with guns, said the short man with the mustache. No guys with bombs strapped to their backs either. Neither did Clay. But he did see this little small treasure shopping bag and his portfolio sitting on the sidewalk. And he saw that the blood from Parachute Woman's open throat. Yeah, God, he thought, all that blood had almost reached the portfolio. All but a dozen or so of his drawings were Dark Wanderer were in there, and it was the drawings his mind seized on. He started back that way at a speed walk, and the short man kept pace. When a second burglar alarm, some kind of alarm anyway, went off in the hotel, joining its hoarse bray to the clang of the city lights alarm, the little guy jumped. It's the hotel, Clay said. I know, it's just that... Oh my God. You've seen Parachute Woman, now lying in a lake of the magic stuff that had been running all her bells and whistles. What? 4 minutes ago. Only 2? She's dead, Clay told him. At least I'm pretty sure she is. That girl? He pointed at Pixie Light. She did it. With her teeth. You're joking. I wish I was. From somewhere up Bolston Street, there was another explosion. Both men cringed. Clay realized he could now smell smoke. He picked up his small treasure bag and his portfolio and moved them both away from the spreading blood. These are mine, he said, wondering why he felt the need to explain. The little guy, who was wearing a tweed suit, quite dapper, Clay thought, was still staring, horrified at the crumpled body of the woman who had stopped for Sunday and lost first her dog and then her life. Behind him, 3 young men pelted past on the sidewalk, laughing and hurrying. 2 had Red Sox caps turned around backwards. One was carrying a cartoon clutched against his chest. It had the word Panasonic printed in blue on the side. This one stepped in Parachute Woman's spreading blood with his white sneaker and left a fading 1-foot trail behind him as he and his mates ran on towards the east end of the Common and Chinatown beyond. Thank you very much for listening. This was my second part of, I think, still the first chapter of this book, The Pulse. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, I'll catch you in the next one. Take care. Bye bye.